Hello everyone, I am MD and this is the 4th branch program, The Place for Common Sense. Today we continue with the conversation about your healthcare. It is in serious jeopardy and we're here to provide to you information that will help you to make a decision to preserve what is precious, not just for yourself, for your parents, for your grandparents, for your children. You may recall we started that conversation a couple of days ago, in which we tried to debate the pros and the cons of Obamacare. Today we begin with some interesting facts. Usually I give the benefit of the doubt to constituents in terms of their reaction, good or bad, false, because I believe that leaders, Republican and Democrat, or the business communities, they have an obligation, if not financial, but at the very least a moral obligation to guide the rest of us by providing good information, by providing accurate information, and by doing what is beneficial to us. When a politician comes and solicits your help, your vote, usually he or she promises that he or she will do whatever is necessary to address your views, your interests. Now, that doesn't mean the politician will always be successful, because you can imagine that 435 people in a room arguing different sides of an issue, no matter how small, it's not going to be easy. That's understood. But what happens when the very individual you trust, the very individual you voted for, the very individual you elected in office to address your interests, could not care less? And I don't mean the fight between Democrats and Republicans. I simply mean an individual who doesn't care about your interests, an individual who simply takes advantage of his or her position in order to advance his or her own agenda, however detrimental that might be to you. Now, it is no surprise that here in the United States of America, there have been fights, so far, thank God, not physical, but fierce fight between Democrats and Republicans in Washington. It is so bad we have term to talk about it. We say there is gridlock in Washington when nothing can happen. Now, for as long as I can remember, we have been blaming politicians for the problem. I also have been one of such individuals who blame politicians for the current state of affairs in the country. In fact, they are indeed responsible, because we, the people, elected them for our respective states in order to address the most important aspect, the priorities for the state. And we expect that to be the case. Now, both Democrats and Republicans have done their shares of mismanagement, have done their shares of wrongdoing. Historically speaking, however, and this is where things get a little bit dicey, and this is where I try to really grapple with the understanding as to whether there is just one party which has done something, or which has still the American people in sight as a priority to do something about the social issue, the political issue, or whatever issues that our country is confronting. Because historically speaking, what I'm about to tell you, of course, you're not gonna be happy about it, but facts are facts. And the very point of this discussion is to bring to you an important topic which is already making a lot of debate, a lot of news, which is healthcare. For as many decades as I can go back to and try to figure out, or at least try to understand why, I still haven't come up with an answer, but it has become clear that only maybe, just maybe, just the Republican Party can answer that question. Republican members have consistently deliberately done things that are detrimental to the country. Notwithstanding the fact that Republican in general, the Republican Party is actually very good at messaging. Donald Trump is not the genius in the Republican Party. He's just an addition to what Republicans have always been about, which is to tell their constituents something, anything, and make sure that their constituents are convinced of whatever that they heard from the Republican legislators, and they can go ahead and do just the opposite and do whatever would benefit those legislators, whatever would benefit the corporation that they want to protect or they want to give advantage to. Now, all that is bad for the country, and it has been going on for decades now. By my latest calculation, we're approaching a century of such behavior on the part of the Republican Party, on the part of the Republican members. Now, as bad as that sounds to you, or something you may want to just shrug off and walk away from, it is true. In fact, in preparation for this program, the healthcare program, I found out that when it comes to social issues, when it comes to solving problems or helping the constituent, Republicans have always opposed any kind of legislation, any type of initiative that would help the country. Case in point. During the period right after the period of the Great Recession, of course you weren't there, I wasn't either, but it is recorded in history, 1929. The whole world actually was going through really tough time. In fact, just a side note, that's one of the reasons that Adolf Hitler was able to captivate an audience, because he was able to promise better days ahead. Here in the United States, FDR did bring and propose the New Deal. No, we're not talking about the Green New Deal that Miss Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has been bringing to the floor. No, that's not what we're talking about. The Green New Deal was the New Deal was proposed by FDR, and the idea, as I mentioned, the world was going through great recession. And the President of the United States then decided to bring forth a list of legislation that, if passed, will help to take the country out of the predicament it was in order to bring the United States back into better pasture. Here is how history recorded Republicans' reaction to the New Deal. Now, you may not necessarily know, if you're not a student of history, if you're not a historian, it's something that may not be of any importance to you, but it is important to know. And the reason I went as far back is because I want to put in context the conversation we're going to have about the healthcare. Because if you do not understand where your Republican legislators stand when it comes to the constituent, when it comes to your well-being, when it comes to priorities, then the conversation, the damages that Republican legislators have been causing to the country will continue, and ironically with your support. Here's how the Republican then, that's almost 100 years back, reacted to it, according to record. They say the Republicans were split, with conservatives opposing the entire New Deal. And their argument was it would be hostile to business and to economic growth. Now, you may not know anything about the New Deal, but let me point to you the very purpose of the New Deal was to change the state of the country, removing it from the aspect of the Great Recession, of the economic downturn, and bring it back on its feet so that people could have jobs and things could get better. That was the very purpose of the New Deal. And it was well detailed, well presented to Congress. Republicans just said no. Now, I'm not going to dwell on that. If you want to find more information about that, I'm happy to remind you that we did have a program in which we really provided a lot of details about this particular aspect of our history. It is on the YouTube People Branch YouTube channel, and we discussed that under entitlement system. At some point a few months back, we were discussing entitlement system, so we did take the time to provide a lot of detail about especially the health aspect of the entitlement. So you might want to check it out, and while you're there, I would encourage you to subscribe to the People Branch YouTube channel, or subscribe to Twitter, to Facebook, to Periscope, whichever venue that you use. I would strongly encourage you to subscribe, because it will provide us the opportunity to send you invite, to send you update, and to also keep you abreast of activities we have on the Fourth Branch front. Now, back to that. Republicans completely opposed the New Deal. Now, to fast forward, the New Deal was actually what took the country out of the recession and bring it back on its feet. The country was going through a recession. You have a president who proposed a way out of the recession. Republican, without any kind of data, any kind of logical, rational information, say that's bad, It's not good for the economy. It's not good for businesses. And guess what? You want to take a guess? Just the opposite was true. It's either that's the only two logical conclusion. It's either Republicans have always been unable to grasp complex issues, or the second, they always oppose anything that a Democrat proposes. It's either one or the other. It cannot be both. It's either they cannot grasp that concept. Because if indeed the reason you elect someone is to advance the affairs of the country, to make your life easier, to attend to the priorities, when something is proposed, whether it's proposed by a Democrat or a Republican, you would assume that all the legislators would work together in order to make it better, in order to do something to enhance it. But since, as you can see, that happened in the 1929, 1930s. This is year 2019, I'm sorry. Almost 100 years of record that Republicans always oppose whatever is proposed, no matter how beneficial it is for the country. Which brings me today to talking about the healthcare, Obamacare. Now, if you want your healthcare, if you want to be able to take care of yourself, of your family, of your parents, of your grandparents, or of your children, I encourage you to stick around. Pay very close attention, because as we are talking, there are a number of activities that are going behind the scene, that are ongoing behind the scene, that could put your health in jeopardy. I'll be right back. I am MD, host of the Fourth Branch program, inviting you to join me every Saturday at 10:30 a.m. and every weekday at 2 p.m. for discussions of social political issues and to dissect the meaning and the importance of current events, as well as to understand topics of legislations. The Fourth Branch Project is not associated with any political party, and we at the Fourth Branch do not have any political agenda or aspiration. Our ultimate objective is to work towards achieving a more perfect union by removing ignorance, the biggest obstacle to our democracy. Stay with us. We will be right back. So it should not be surprising to you to know that Obamacare was voted voted to be repealed by the Republican 62 times. That should not surprise you. In fact, for anyone who is a student in history, anyone who has paid attention to politics in the United States, as I just mentioned, you would know that anything that's proposed by a Democrat would be opposed by Republicans, no matter the benefit to the country. As such, when Obama became president of the United States, one of his priorities were to provide health care to as many people as possible. Of course, there is a history, there is a story behind that. And Republicans tried since that time everything humanly possible to destroy, to prevent it from happening. Just like it was during FDR in the New Deal, Republicans brought all kind of argument as to why Obamacare would be bad for the country. How do you save a drowning man who believes he is a professional swimmer? How do you do that? Someone did suggest to whack the person in the head, whack him unconscious, and maybe, just maybe, you might be able to save that individual. Now, it is understandable when someone plays politics. There is nothing wrong with that because that's what politicians do. But where do you draw the line between politics and deception? I don't believe a second that any individual, Democrat or Republican, who decide to go for public service had in the back of his or her mind that he or she's going to do that to screw people up. In fact, just the opposite is probably true, that the individual would see a need that is not being addressed and determine that he or she is going to public service in order to address that need. Usually you see Democrats in general stick to whatever that they had as the reason to go into politics, as you see with Elizabeth Warren and of course a bunch of others, Bernie Sanders and so on, a bunch of other Democrats. But for a reason that I still am not able to understand yet, I'm certain that Republicans who go for public service started the same way. But once they get into the position, they completely abandon the reason for which they went in public service and start attending to large corporations and start attending to other businesses, their own agenda, even when it doesn't benefit their constituent. When Obama introduced the Patient Protection Affordable Care Act, aka Obamacare, Republicans across the board opposed it. Now, you may not necessarily remember, I do because I was following that very closely, before the document, before the legislation that Obama wanted to propose, before that document was even made available for Republicans to see the detail of what he had in mind, they were already against it. You may not recall that Republicans organized protests on the street to go against Obamacare, to call it death panel, and to try as best as possible to make certain that Obamacare was not passed. And they came up with all sort of argument. That's something they've been doing for a century now, as I mentioned earlier. I am not in a position yet to understand why Republican legislators, instead of looking at the positive in a legislation and work the kinks, the detail out, they completely go against it no matter how good it is for the country. They will tell you everything that they think that's bad. That's exactly what they did to FDR. And thank God we had a leader who simply plow away and change the course of history. And I strongly encourage you to really look in history to find out that what I'm actually telling you today is a sad story for the Republican Party, because they have proven it's not something that's happening just now. Every step of the way they oppose something that would be beneficial for the country, beneficial for the constituent. They oppose Social Security, they oppose Medicare, they oppose Medicaid. Now, if it were not for Democrats' administration, all those things that we have here, the Social Security check that when you get older, when you retire, you're collecting, you wouldn't have it because Republicans completely oppose that. In fact, I don't have to convince you of that, because even up to today, they try to get rid of it. Now the question is, why? Why do Republican legislators, the individual that you elect to address the priorities, your concern, to solve problems, why do they do things that are actually detrimental to you, to the country, to the constituent? That's something I've been grappling with and I've been trying to understand. Or they do provide explanation, because when they oppose Obamacare, they give you a list of reasons for doing that. When they oppose the New Deal by FDR, they give a list of reasons. But it so happened that everything that they said was untrue, was wrong, was misleading, because all they wanted is to get enough support to prevent it from happening. But why? Now today, your health care is in the balance, and the reason is because after trying 62 times to repeal Obamacare, they have failed, and now guess where they at? They in court in front of judges trying to make the case so that the judges can say that Obamacare is illegal and get rid of it completely. But why? Why do Republican legislators every step of the way, instead of trying to improve, instead of trying to work with the Democrat on a legislation such as Obamacare? Now, you may recall that, especially if you are a Republican, you were never allowed, if you live in a Republican state, you were never provided the opportunity to sign up for Obamacare, because your governors, Republican governors, make certain that Obamacare was not available for the constituent in that state. So they took even that freedom that every single one of us has to make our choices. They took that away from you because they say it's not good for you, we're not going to accept it. The question is, why? Now I'm going to show you something that's really very disturbing. First, we already know that Republican legislators oppose Obamacare because it's not favorable to insurance companies. And they gung-ho about protecting the insurance companies. Doesn't matter what happened to you, as far as they are concerned, if they can protect the insurance company when they need campaign finance money, the insurance company will happily provide that. Now I'm going to show you, I'm going to give you a couple of items that are covered, that are part of Obamacare. And after that, I'm going to show you that when I tell you that your Republican legislators do not want anything good for you, I'm actually flabbergasted that someone whose job is to protect you, someone whose job is to make your life easier, would rather do things that hurt you as long as it helps to protect companies. In this particular case, it's insurance companies. Now, if you recall, during the whole debate about Obamacare, Republican legislators were all over the place, on radio, on TV, giving interviews in terms of how bad Obamacare is. In the 2018 midterm election, a number of those same Republicans who voted again and again and again and again against Obamacare were the one out there telling you, if you re-elect me, I will make sure I protect that insurance for you. I'll make sure I protect that coverage. Now, can you explain that logically? If something is bad for you, and for 6 years under Obama, they've been voting against it. For 2 years under Trump, they've been voting against it, and then suddenly they want to help keep it. It's because they finally realized that now you have come to the knowledge of the fact that Obamacare actually has a lot of good benefits in it. So now they're afraid that because you come to that knowledge, then you're not going to vote for them, so they come to con you. But the question you should ask, why all this time they were voting against it? If it's that bad, why now all of a sudden they want to help you keep it? So when I tell you that your Republican legislators, they don't have your interest at heart, it's not something I'm making up. In fact, I'm going to show you, give you two very recent examples of what your Republican legislators, what they have done to you. Because as far as they're concerned, your lives are not important. It's a bargaining chip. They simply need your vote, but your lives are not important. And they make certain every step of the way. They've been doing that for over a century now. Voting against what's good for the country, against what's good for the constituent. Now, after an announcement, I'm going to come back and provide to you not the whole list, because it is a long list, a few of the benefits that are more talked about of Obamacare. And then following that, I will give you example of 2 senators who have been voting against Obamacare, knowing that it is actually good for the constituent. You don't want to miss that. And The reason I'm providing those things to you is because, as I mentioned earlier, there is something currently going on behind the scene that may cost you your health care. So you don't really want to just vote your party because, well, that's what you've been voting all your life. Is it good for you? Is it looking out for you? Is it beneficial to you? This is the time that has come where voting a party is no longer the way to vote. You are on the Fourth Branch program, the place for common sense.
After reading several books based on presidents and on Obama specifically, I found that they're typically partisan. The Obama legacy targets the heart of the issue by giving credit to the president where it's due, but definitely coming down hard on Obama on his bigger failures, like his handling of the Syrian crisis.
If you are in college, going to college, you are an educator, a faculty member, or someone with interest in government or politics, The Obama Legacy is definitely a book to read.
My professor recommended The Obama Legacy.
A friend actually recommended The Obama Legacy.
I would highly recommend this book for anyone, whether for academic use or leisure reading.
I would recommend this book to anyone out there searching for an impartial and unbiased look into Barack Obama's tenure as president.
I would definitely recommend this book as a good read for both liberals and conservatives.
Donald Trump is wrong to call the media the enemy of the people. Throughout history, dictators, authoritarians have always tried to delegitimize the media in order to get away with corruption, scandal, and yes, even abuse. Adolf Hitler did exactly the same thing in 1933, accusing the media of fabrication. Journalists are not in the business of fairness. Our only business, is to be objective. It is our duty to hold Trump and every administration accountable. Today, it is urgent. It is necessary. It is critical. Our very freedom depends on it. As I mentioned, we're going to take a look at a few of the benefits of Obamacare, and that will give you a sense as to, and this is not something that was added yesterday, this is not something that was added later. It came when Obamacare was signed, the legislation was signed into law in 2010. March 23rd, 2010, Obama signed into law the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act, which we come to call Obamacare. But it was not until January of 2014 that this legislation became effective. But the few benefits that I'm going to be talking about, those are benefits that have always been part of Obamacare. Here's one. Now, one of the important aspects of Obamacare is to bring down the cost of healthcare premium. If you suffer, or if you suffered, or you had a loved one who suffered of serious illness such as cancer, or let's just say any illness that requires long-term care, it would be almost impossible to get insurance. Second, even if you were to be able to get insurance, to get an insurance company to insure you, the premium would be you'd have to sell your shirt in order to pay the premium. And treatment are usually very expensive for long-term care. So what did Obamacare do? Obamacare took all of that away from your worry, because it is already a stressful time when you're sick, when you have a loved one who is sick. Now you have to worry about money as well. So what Obamacare did, it says to the insurance company, you cannot deny people insurance anymore just because they have pre-existing condition. And what else did Obamacare do? Obamacare makes certain that the insurance company could not charge you an exorbitant amount of money as premium. So Obamacare not only makes certain you can get insurance even if you have a pre-existing condition, but also put a cap on how much the insurance company can charge you. Isn't that nice? In the past, and by the way, it wasn't just for the Democrat, it was a legislation for every American citizen. Now, it also provides ways for people who were denied coverage before to be able to appeal. In the past, that would not get you anywhere. But with Obamacare, because now the insurance company knows that they will incur legal costs as well, so they have no incentive of going outside the law. So they comply. Now, under Obamacare, you also will be able to get screening for we call preventative care without having to pay a penny. No copay, no deductible. You just go, for instance, if you go for mammogram screening, if you go for prostate screening, you would not have any copay or any deductible, because Obamacare prevent that from happening. You also have your children who are covered under your insurance. By the way, it used to be on up to 21 years old if they are in college, but under Obamacare, your children up to 26 years old can be under your coverage. And while they're under your coverage, even if they have pre-existing conditions, they too are eligible for all the benefit of Obamacare. And the 26 years old, I'm just going over the list of those benefits. So the two major aspects, I would say, of Obamacare is to, number one, to prevent insurance company from denying you coverage, and two, to make certain that they do not charge an arm and a leg and thus really pretty much denying you coverage. So the legislation, the Obamacare, prevent them from doing so. The Obamacare provides you the option of of having your children up to 26 years old, even if they're not in school. They don't have to be in school. In the past, if your children are in college, you can cover them up to 21 years old. Now, if they continue to go to college after 21, you still would not be able to cover them, because that's just the way it was. But under Obamacare, whether your children are in college or not, they finish college or not, if they're 26 or younger, they could be under your coverage. And if they have pre-existing conditions, so the coverage, the pre-existing condition is not just for you, the subscriber, is for everybody in your family. So your children, your spouses, it just did not matter. You would be covered. Let's see what else we can get. Of course, for seniors, you have a number of options that the extended coverage, so to speak, we call it extended or expanded coverage, that Obamacare provided. You may not necessarily recall, but under the George Bush administration, there was some sort of coverage they called the do not coverage. It was mostly for the prescription, but the do not, and this expression do not hold, did come about because this coverage did not cover everything, cover part of. So what Obamacare did, it provides these people 65 years or older now the opportunity to have the rest, the remaining part of that do not hold to be covered. So it kind of really, there is a hole in the coverage under the Bush plan. Under the Obama plan, it covers that hole. All right, so and there is also another interesting aspect of Obamacare is it provides access to services at home. Now, it's not that this particular service was not available, but it was extra money to be paid, to be spent, and it was also extra cost, premium cost. So under Obamacare, that was also available. And of course, there was preventative care for people who reach older, who've reached 65 years or older, and there were also the drug discount. Those are really small aspects of Obamacare, but nevertheless, if you were to remove them and you start removing all those small little aspect of the coverage that someone gets under Obamacare, and suddenly you'll find that your insurance now is not worth much, because you cannot use it for much, because most of the coverage you would have to get to do out-of-pocket expenses. So Obamacare has really done a great job, first to prevent people with existing condition from having to worry about being denied coverage, to put a cap on the fact that insurance company before Obamacare could charge you an arm and a leg, but now under Obamacare they could not, because Obamacare, the legislation clearly say you can only charge so much for premium for people who have pre-existing conditions. So the insurance company pretty much were boxed in what they could do, which brings me to this aspect of why Republicans every step of the way they want to be on the side of the corporation, in this case the insurance company, no matter what it does to you. So the reason that they try so hard to get rid of Obamacare is because the minute that they're able to do that, now the insurance company can deny coverage for people with pre-existing condition, can increase the premium to whatever that they want. If they want to insure you, they will insure you, but you would have a hard time even paying the premium because it will be too expensive. And your children who are 26 years, who are older rather than 21, would suddenly not have access to your coverage. So Republicans are doing everything, Republican legislators, they're doing everything possible, and all those things that they're doing, it's not for your benefit. It's not for the benefit of the constituent, but rather for the benefit of the insurance companies. And I'm going to show you, when we return, I'm going to show you two legislators who have been voting against Obamacare. And when they got their back against the wall, see what they did. We'll be right back. A small network by the name of Fox News was launched with just 17 million viewers. Today, with over 100 million people watching regularly, Fox has become the greatest threat to our democracy, constantly bombarding the airwaves with false information, distortion of facts, and outright lies presented to its audience as news. Fox has created an army of blissful ignorance. According to a survey, 82% of Fox viewers are ignorant of facts and the truth. To keep millions of people in ignorance not only prevents democracy from flourishing, but it also clears the path to authoritarianism, to dictatorship. Martin Luther King Jr. said, "Nothing in all the world is more dangerous than sincere ignorance and conscientious stupidity." Let me finish by saying that democracy cannot survive in an environment where truth and facts do not matter. At Fox, truth and facts do not matter. Indeed, democracy in America is in jeopardy. It is a crisis the country can no longer ignore. Don't forget, tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. we will return on this same program to discuss a very important topic, which is children behind bars. Our children are being hauled away in en masse and placed behind bar, and it's a conversation that we already started, and we will continue that conversation, and we will show you the damages that doing that have caused to future generation. And we will also point fingers to the individual who are doing that and why they're doing that. Not because they love our children, not because they love keeping our country safe, but rather because they enrich themselves at the expense of our children. So you don't want to miss that program tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. Don't go anywhere. We will return to show you those two senators those two senators who know, who are well aware of the fact that Obamacare is good for the constituent, and yet they voted against it time and time and time again until it becomes their personal problem. And you're going to see it's going to be so blatant how those same legislators you trust to do the right thing, the same legislator you trust to do things that are beneficial to you, they just couldn't care. But when it's their back against the wall, you'll see how fast they turn around. Don't go anywhere. Now, here it is. Here's the first person I'm going to show you. Now, this person, Dana Rohrabacher. Not sure if I pronounced the name properly, but it's right on the screen, so you can read it, and I'm sure you may know how to pronounce that. Now, he's a former senator, thank God. He voted, if I'm not mistaken, he voted 8 times. Yes, he voted 8 times to repeal the Affordable Care Act. 8 times he voted to repeal Obamacare. And in case you don't remember, Republicans' argument against Obamacare have been, well, a number of things. It's bad for the constituent, it's bad for the economy, it's going to kill grandma, it's going to kill grandpa, and the list went on and on and on. That guy that you're looking at during the 2018 midterm election, he's back against the wall after voting many times to repeal Obamacare. He found himself in a pickle. His daughter that you're looking at on the screen, that's sitting on the swing. The wife is right next to him behind the daughter. He found out that his daughter, Anika, diagnosed with leukemia. Now, this is nothing to laugh about. This is nothing to be happy about. But I want to point to you the hypocrisy, the callousness of the Republican legislators you put in office to represent you. Now, it's his daughter. Of course, he wants the best health care for him. Of course, he wants his daughter to be well taken care of. That's when he remembered, oh, Obamacare can easily get supplemental insurance under Obamacare because cannot be denied coverage because of her pre-existing condition. You see what I mean? If it's you, if it's your family, he doesn't care. In fact, he voted every time to repeal Obamacare. Every time. But in the 2018 midterm election, he came to you and said, see, I know what it's like to have pre-existing condition. My little daughter, Anika, has pre-existing condition. Of course he doesn't care about you. We know that. Because all this time he's been voting against Obamacare. It's not that he doesn't know that Obamacare protect people who have pre-existing condition. prevent insurance company from denying them coverage. It's not that he doesn't know that. He knows that. He's a legislator, for God's sake. But he voted against it anyway, because your life doesn't matter to him. Why should he care? It's your life. It's your loved one's life. It's your parents' life. It's your children's life. Not his, until it becomes his. And that's when all of a sudden he can tell you, gee, Obamacare is good. I'm going to try everything humanly possible to make certain that you don't get denied coverage for pre-existing condition. For 6 years, he's been doing that. When I tell you your Republican legislature don't care, I don't mean that as an insult. I don't mean that just for the sake of saying that. I mean that literally speaking, your Republican legislators, they just don't care about you. They've been proven that over and over and over. It's been a century since Republicans have been doing everything that's detrimental to the country, that's detrimental to the constituent. What I have not been able to grasp completely is why. Why would someone go for public office to become a public servant and screw their constituent up? Why? Is a perfect case of someone who didn't have to wait until his daughter his daughter suffers of leukemia. Did he? He didn't have to. But he sided against you anyway. He sided with the insurance company, because the insurance company is paying for his election, for his re-election, because they want the idea of covering people with pre-existing condition to be over with. Because if they could charge people with pre-existing condition more premium, then that would put more money in their pocket. So the Republican legislators, they're much too happy to help. So they're not serving you, the constituent. The people they're serving are the insurance companies. And we know that because Dana have been voted against Obamacare several times, many times, until he found that his little daughter, Anika, precious, suffers of leukemia. Now, his daughter is precious, yours is not. His daughter is precious, your parents are not. His daughter is precious, but your sons are not. His daughter is precious, but you are not, because that was his mission in life, to cancel an insurance, to cancel the Obamacare so that you could not get coverage for pre-existing condition. And that's the person you want to represent you. You see something wrong with that picture? You vote in office individuals who do not have your well-being at heart, who do not have your interests at heart, because every opportunity that they have, they do things that are detrimental to the constituent. They do things that are detrimental to the country. Now, I say thank God he didn't get re-elected. He lost during the 2018 midterm election. But he wasn't alone. That guy, Josh Hawley, he's a young guy, actually very young guy. I think he's either 39 years old. I'm not sure he's 40 yet, but he's a senator from the state of Missouri. That guy is an attorney. He was a state attorney for the state of Missouri. He voted, he tried several times in lawsuit to invalidate the Affordable Care Act, and listen to this, including pre-existing condition rules. Yes, you heard correctly. This is not made up, it's written, it's published in newspaper. Josh Hawley was a state attorney who filed lawsuit to invalidate the Affordable Care Act, the Obamacare, that's what we're talking about, to invalidate the Affordable Care Act, and he made sure, he said, including pre-existing condition rules. He made sure that also would go away. The Trump administration support the suit, and the Trump administration said that pre-existing condition provision in particular should be eliminated. Unfortunately, that guy, he's the constituent in the state of Missouri, either they didn't know, either they didn't care, either they don't know what they were doing, they voted that guy in office. He's a senator representing the state of Missouri. Contrary to Dana Rohrabacher that I just showed you, who voted against the act, that guy actually went even further. He filed lawsuit to invalidate the Affordable Care Act, and he made certain to include pre-existing condition as well to go away. And this is the guy that you voted in office. So Republican legislators do not care about the constituent. They do not care about you, your life, your family life. And yet, what do? You vote that guy in office. Sometimes I wonder which is worse, the Republican legislators who simply don't care about the country, don't care about their constituent, or the constituent who are too naive, too gullible, too ignorant to understand that their legislators don't care about them. Which is worse? Ignorance, they say, is the biggest threat to any democracy. Indeed, it is. Plato, a Greek philosopher born in 427 BC, said that ignorance is the root and stem of all evil. Today, members in the Republican Party wear ignorance as a badge of honor, while the rest of the country watch powerless the destruction of a country which was once the envy of the world. The media is the enemy of the country, said Donald Trump. The Democrat legislators are obstructionists for not going along with everything the president wants. The Department of Justice is biased for investigating corruption in the Trump administration. This is the United States of America. Any question? Donald Trump is wrong to call the media the enemy of the people. Throughout history, dictators, authoritarians have always tried to delegitimize the media in order to get away with corruption, scandal, and yes, even abuse. Adolf Hitler did exactly the same thing in 1933, accusing the media of fabrication. Journalists are not in the business of fairness. Our only business, is to be objective. It is our duty to hold Trump and every administration accountable. Today, it is urgent. It is necessary. It is critical. Our very freedom depends on it. Don't forget, tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. right here on the Fourth Branch program, we will debate the issues of children behind bars. I hope the program today was of some use to you. At the very least, provide you some information that you can use in your decision making. Because the 2020 presidential election, your health care are on the ballot. And the reason it is that important is, you may not recall, but a few days ago, Donald Trump said that after the 2020 election, he's assuming he's going to win, that they will come with a brand new health package which is much better than Obamacare. And of course, a lot of people may believe him, despite the fact that we know everything that Donald Trump said is a lie. That very statement that he said that they're going to come with a healthcare package that's better than Obamacare. I don't know if you were paying attention earlier when Josh Hawley, the gentleman that I just showed you, who is now a senator from Missouri, when he filed a lawsuit to invalidate Obamacare, including pre-existing condition rule, the Trump administration supported it. And the Trump administration argued that the pre-existing condition provision in particular should be eliminated. So when you hear that Donald Trump say he's going to have a health care plan that protect pre-existing condition, I don't know how stupid anyone has to be to believe that, because in court, his legal team is at work trying to get rid of Obamacare, including pre-existing condition rules. So if indeed logic is really what differentiates us from other animals, other than that, we exactly the same, because human, our anatomy, our needs, our emotion, a lot of those things are pretty common across animal species. The only thing that differentiates us from other animals is that we have a brain that, if it works, gives us the opportunity to be able to come up with conclusion that tells you, that doesn't make sense. Because if today Donald Trump legal team is in court arguing to cancel Obamacare, and he specifically want the pre-existing condition to be eliminated, then why would he offer a plan with pre-existing condition? Unless you're completely oblivious to logic, that doesn't make any sense. Because if he thought, okay, we can keep pre-existing condition, then he would say, all right, let's get rid of Obamacare. We don't want anything in Obamacare but the pre-existing condition. We want to protect people with pre-existing condition. No, that's not what his legal team is arguing in court, saying get rid of everything including pre-existing condition. Your health care is on the ballot. The only suggestion, the only advice I can give you is choose wisely. Otherwise, just like you saw Dana Rohrabacher, Josh Hawley, who voted against Obamacare, who tried to get rid of Obamacare, they are not done. They're gonna continue until they get rid of it. Now, Obamacare was not created for Democrats. Obama was not a president like Donald Trump. He did not come up with ways to help people, to help only people who voted for him. He knew he was the president of the country, not of some groups. As such, whatever legislation he signed was for the good, the greater good. You may not agree with it, you may not have agreed with it, you may not have liked it, but it was with that in mind. So if you have any interest in healthcare, I strongly urge you to get involved, and in the 2020 presidential election, choose wisely. Otherwise, you may not live long enough to regret it. I hope you have a wonderful afternoon and hope to see you again next time here tomorrow, Saturday at 10:30 a.m. on the 4th Branch program, The Place for Common Sense. Good day. The 4th Branch podcast is brought to you in collaboration with the People Branch publication, which can be found on the People Branch website located at peoplebranch.org. That's peoplebranch.org. That's peoplebranch.org website, in which you will find a number of very interesting articles. My name is Mike Duchesne, MD for short. I hope you have a great afternoon or a great evening, whichever it happens to be. Hopefully you can join me again next time for another interesting episode of this podcast. That was the 4th Branch, live from New York. Good day.